The lake shimmered like liquid silver in the winter sunlight as I stood on my deck, coffee in hand, savoring the peaceful morning. 2 years of careful saving, smart investments, and countless overtime hours had finally paid off in this slice of paradise. My own lakefront sanctuary, purchased entirely with my own money, no family loans or assistance needed. Of course, that independence was precisely what bothered them. My phone buzzed, Mom's third text of the morning. Don't forget Christmas dinner at 4. Your brother has big news. Don't be late. I sighed, already dreading the upcoming family gathering. Ever since Thomas lost his job at the investment firm 6 months ago, every family dinner had become an exercise in guilt and manipulation. Not that anyone blamed him for the downsizing, of course. Thomas was the golden child. His struggles were always someone else's fault, usually mine. I took one last look at the pristine lake before heading inside to get ready. The property had been a steal, foreclosure sale, previous owners divorcing. I'd pounced on the opportunity while everyone else hesitated. 3 bedrooms, private dock, and the kind of sunset views that made even realtors speechless. My own piece of perfection. Should have known they wouldn't let me enjoy it for long. The drive to my parents' house took 40 minutes, each mile ratcheting up my tension. Sure enough, Thomas's Range Rover was already in the driveway, despite his supposed financial difficulties. Some struggles don't extend to luxury vehicles, apparently. Mom answered the door with her patent-pending mix of guilt and disappointment. Finally, everyone's been waiting. Thomas has such wonderful news. I followed her into the living room, where the usual suspects were assembled. Dad in his armchair pretending to watch football while actually monitoring everyone's reactions. Thomas and his wife Sandra on the couch, their 3 kids sprawled across the floor with tablets and phones. The perfect family portrait, minus the struggling uncle who selfishly lived alone in a lakefront property. Little brother, Thomas boomed too loudly. Was beginning to think you'd skip Christmas. Traffic, I muttered, accepting Mom's offered eggnog. What's this big news? Thomas and Sandra exchanged meaningful looks. Dad muted the TV. Mom perched on the armrest, practically vibrating with excitement. Well, Thomas began, as you know, things have been tough since the downsizing. But I've been working on some opportunities. Here we go. I've decided to start my own investment consulting firm. He beamed. Working from home, building my own client base. It's perfect, that's great, I said carefully. You have startup capital. His smile flickered. Well, that's part of the exciting news. Mom and Dad have offered to help with the initial funding, and Sandra's parents are contributing. But we'll need a proper office space, somewhere to meet clients. The penny dropped. I took a long sip of eggnog, waiting for the other shoe. Your lake house would be perfect. Sandra burst out. The view alone would impress clients. And the kids could use the dock in summer. My lake house, I repeated flatly. It makes perfect sense. Mom jumped in. You're never there during the week anyway, always working those long hours at the office. And Thomas needs a fresh start, in my house. Don't be selfish, Dad finally spoke. Your brother has a family to support. What do you need all that space for? Living alone, no kids. I need it because I bought it, I said slowly. With my money, that I earned. And we're so proud of your success. Mom rushed to add. But family helps family. Thomas would handle the maintenance, the property taxes. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Like he handled his last mortgage. The one you had to refinance your retirement to cover. Sandra gasped. Thomas's face darkened. That's not fair. The market crashed. Everyone was struggling. Everyone except me, I noted, because I lived below my means, saved my money and made careful investments. Like buying my lake house, which you could easily sell. Sandra interjected. In this market you'd make a fortune. More than enough to buy something smaller, more appropriate for your lifestyle. My lifestyle. Code for single, childless, apparently undeserving of lakefront property. Or, Dad said in his business voice, you could rent it to Thomas at a family rate, help him get established again. That's what family does. I set down my eggnog, untouched. Family helps family. Where was that sentiment when I was working 2 jobs to afford college? When I needed a cosigner for my first apartment? When I was eating ramen while Thomas got a new car for graduation? That was different. Mom protested. You were young, establishing yourself. And now I have established myself. Without help, without family loans. without expecting others to sacrifice their assets for my benefit. No one's asking you to sacrifice, Thomas argued. We'd maintain the property, maybe even make improvements. Like you maintained your last house, the one that nearly went into foreclosure. Sandra stood up, hands on hips. That's enough. We're trying to create a win-win situation here. You get guaranteed rent, we get a fresh start, the kids get a beautiful place to grow up, and I get to give up my dream home to fix Thomas's mistakes. Again, I pulled out my phone, opening my property management app. Want to see something interesting? The security footage from last week, when someone tried to access my gate code. Thomas's face went pale. Sandra suddenly found the Christmas tree fascinating. Or maybe the realtor notifications, showing someone's been inquiring about my property's market value. I smiled coldly. Funny how those calls started right after Thomas lost his job. We were just exploring options. Mom said weakly. No, you were planning to manipulate me. Again, push the family obligation buttons. Guilt me into solving Thomas's problems. Again, Dad stood up, his voice stern. Now listen here, young man. Your brother needs help. He has children to consider. You can't what? Maintain boundaries, protect my assets, expect my brother to solve his own problems. You're being heartless. Sandra burst out. Those are your nieces and nephews. And this is my house, purchased with my money, protected by my security system, which, by the way, now has your license plate flagged for unauthorized access attempts. The room exploded into chaos. Mom started crying. Dad turned an alarming shade of red. Thomas launched into a speech about family loyalty, while Sandra herded the kids upstairs. I stood up calmly. I think we're done here. Merry Christmas. If you walk out that door, Dad thundered, don't expect to be welcome back. I paused in the doorway. Interesting threat, Dad. Almost as interesting as the property tax record showing you're 3 months behind on this house. Want to discuss that while we're talking about family obligations? Dead silence fell. I pulled an envelope from my jacket. Consider it my Christmas gift. I paid the back taxes, not because you deserve it, but because I won't let this house go into foreclosure with Mom's name on the deed. But try to take my property again. Try to manipulate me into fixing Thomas's mistakes again, and next time I'll let the county handle it. Mom's sob followed me out the door. In my car, I took a deep breath, hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed with incoming texts. How dare you embarrass us like this? Your brother is devastated. Family means sacrifice. I turned off the phone and started the engine. The lake house beckoned, my sanctuary, my reward for years of hard work and careful planning. Let them call me selfish. Let them play the family card. Some boundaries weren't negotiable. The security gate opened smoothly as I approached, recognizing my car's signature. The lake sparkled ahead, untouched by family drama and manipulation. Inside, I poured a real drink, no eggnog here, and stood on my deck, watching the winter sunset paint the water gold. My phone lay silent on the counter, probably exploding with messages. Tomorrow there would be tears and accusations, guilt trips and manipulation attempts, maybe even legal threats, or attempts to prove I was somehow incompetent to manage my own property. Let them try. I'd learned the hard way that family loyalty only counts when it flows upward. When the golden child needs saving, when the parents need bailing out, when success must be shared but failure remains individual. Well, not this time, not my house, not my sanctuary. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the lake peaceful in the growing darkness. Somewhere across town, my family was probably still in chaos, plotting their next attempt to help Thomas by sacrificing my stability. But here, in my house, on my lake, their drama couldn't touch me. I'd earned this peace, one careful decision at a time, and I intended to keep it. The next 3 weeks proved exactly how far a desperate family would go to get what they wanted. First came the love bombing. Dozens of texts from Mom about family healing and finding compromise. Then Dad's voicemails about reasonable solutions and temporary arrangements. Even Sandra got in on the act, sending photos of the kids looking sad by their above-ground pool. Just think how much happier they'd be at the lake, she wrote. I ignored them all. Then came the escalation. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when my assistant buzzed in. Sir, there's a building inspector here, Says he received complaints about unauthorized renovations. I smiled grimly. Right on schedule. The inspector, a tired-looking man named Martinez, seemed embarrassed by the whole thing. Anonymous complaint, he explained. Reviewing my perfectly up-to-date permits. Claims you're running an illegal business from the property. Unauthorized construction. Let me guess, I said, pulling up my security feeds. The complaints started about 3 weeks ago. He nodded. And would these help? I handed him a folder containing photos of Thomas's Range Rover attempting to access my gate, documentation of the multiple calls to realtors, and a record of harassment complaints I'd filed. Martinez scanned the documents, sighing. Family dispute. My brother wants my house. Doesn't want to pay for it. Ah. He closed the folder. I'll mark these complaints as investigated and unfounded. But they'll keep trying, in my experience. Yes, he was right. The building inspector was just the beginning. Next came the environmental survey team, responding to concerns about dock modifications. Then the tax assessor, investigating claims of undervalued property. Each time I was ready with documentation, permits, and security footage showing the true source of the complaints. But Thomas wasn't done. Mr. Anderson, my assistant's voice was tense. Your brother's wife is here with several moving trucks. I checked my security feeds. Sure enough, 3 moving vans were parked outside my gate, Sandra directing them like a general planning invasion. Call the police, I said calmly. Report attempted trespassing, and activate Protocol Delta. Protocol Delta was my latest security upgrade, specifically designed for family intrusions. As I watched, sprinklers activated across the entire front lawn, drenching Sandra and the movers. The gate's warning system broadcast clearly. Unauthorized access attempt recorded. Police have been notified. Sandra's outraged screech was audible even through the security feed. The police arrived quickly. Small town, slow day. Officer Jenkins took one look at the situation and sighed. Miss, you can't just move into someone's property without authorization. It's a family matter. Sandra protested, mascara running from the sprinklers. My children need. Your children, I said, arriving on scene. Don't justify theft. Theft, she spun toward me, finger pointing. You're the thief, hoarding all this space while we're cramped in a rental. The kids sharing rooms. Thomas's business failing before it starts. And that's my responsibility. How? Because you're family. Officer Jenkins stepped between us. Ma'am, family or not, this is private property. You need to leave. We have rights, she insisted. Squatters' rights. Adverse possession. I couldn't help laughing. You've been watching too many TikTok legal videos. Adverse possession requires continuous occupation for years. You haven't managed 5 minutes. Thomas will hear about this. I'm sure he will. Right after he hears from my lawyer about criminal trespassing charges. The moving trucks departed quickly. No one wanted to be involved in domestic disputes. Sandra left last, pausing at her car. This isn't over. Actually it is. I held up my phone. Everything's recorded. Next attempt ends in restraining orders. That night, Mom called crying. How could you embarrass Sandra like that? She was just trying to help the family by stealing my house. It's not stealing if it's family. Thomas needs to solve his own problems, and you need to stop enabling him. I'm calling your sister, she threatened. Margaret will talk sense into you. I muted the phone, letting her rant. Margaret, my older sister in Seattle, was the family's voice of reason. The mediator, the peacemaker, usually. An hour later, Margaret's text arrived. Just heard what's happening. Need to talk. Your place tomorrow. I sent back gate access codes and a time. Margaret at least, I trusted not to arrive with moving trucks. She pulled up in her sensible hybrid the next morning, looking exactly like the successful corporate attorney she was. One look at my security system, and she whistled, expecting a siege. Already under one. Inside, over coffee, I showed her the documentation, the harassment, the false complaints, the moving truck incident. She reviewed everything with a lawyer's precision. They've lost their minds, she finally said. You sound surprised. I knew Thomas was struggling, but this, she shook her head. They're going to get themselves arrested. That's what I keep telling them. Mom called me hysterical about evil security systems and ungrateful brothers. I snorted. Because protecting my property is evil. According to her, yes. Margaret sighed. They want me to talk sense into you. Find a family solution. And she stood walking to the window. The lake stretched perfect and calm beyond. And I'm going to talk sense into them instead. This ends now. They won't listen. They will. Her smile turned sharp. Because I'm executing Dad's power of attorney. I blinked. What? Did you know they took out a second mortgage? Another attempt to bankroll Thomas's schemes. I found out when they tried to use my name as guarantee. They what? Oh yes. Dear brother Thomas convinced them he just needed more capital. One more investment. One more chance. And they fell for it. They always do. She turned back to me. But not anymore. I'm freezing their accounts. Blocking any new credit lines.
Everything. Dear accountant.
Blocking any new credit lines. And if Thomas doesn't back off, I'm reporting him for attempted fraud. Mom will never forgive you. Mom needs to wake up. They're one bad decision away from losing everything, including their retirement. I absorbed this. Thomas knows. Thomas is counting on it. Why do you think he's so desperate for your property? He needs collateral for his next investment opportunity. The pieces clicked. He was going to use my house to secure loans. Bingo. She sipped her coffee. Your security system didn't just protect your property. It probably saved your credit score. My phone buzzed. Another text from Sandra about family obligations and children's futures. I showed it to Margaret. They're relentless. They're desperate, she corrected. And desperate people make stupid choices. We need to end this before someone faces criminal charges. You're not alone anymore, little brother. She pulled out her laptop. Now let's discuss restraining orders and financial conservatorship. Looking at my sister, successful, rational, unwilling to enable family dysfunction, I felt something tight in my chest relax. Finally, an ally who understood. Think they'll ever forgive us? I asked. Eventually, when they realize we're trying to save them from themselves. My phone buzzed again. Thomas, this time, you turned Margaret against me. Fine, wait till you see what happens next. I showed Margaret the message. She just smiled. Let him try. Some battles aren't worth the cost. Outside, the lake shimmered in the winter sun. My sanctuary protected now by more than just security systems. Sometimes family means saying no. Sometimes love means standing firm. And sometimes the hardest battles are the ones that save everyone in the end. Thomas's idea of what happens next proved both predictable and dangerous. But this time he overplayed his hand spectacularly. I was in a board meeting when the emergency alerts hit my phone. Multiple security breaches at the lake house, smoke detectors activated, motion sensors triggered throughout the property. Excuse me, I said. Already standing. Family emergency. The security feed showed exactly what I feared. Thomas's Range Rover parked haphazardly in my driveway, my broken front window, and smoke rising from what looked like my kitchen. I called 911 while racing to my car. Braking and entering in progress. Possible fire. Units already responding, the dispatcher said. Multiple neighbors called it in. I hit Margaret's speed dial next. Thomas broke in. Fire department's on the way. That idiot, she hissed. I'm calling Judge Peterson for an emergency restraining order. Don't engage him directly. Too late. I could already see the flashing lights ahead as I turned onto my street. 3 police cars, 2 fire trucks, and a growing crowd of neighbors. Perfect. The fire turned out to be smaller than feared. Thomas had apparently tried to burn documents in my kitchen sink, setting off the smoke detectors. The real damage was to my living room, where he'd apparently taken a golf club to my television and furniture. Officer Jenkins looked grim as he led Thomas out in handcuffs. Criminal trespassing, destruction of property, attempted arson. He's my brother. I protested automatically. Surely we can. Can what? Thomas sneered, struggling against the cuffs. Work it out as family, like you worked out stealing Margaret's loyalty, turning her against me, Sir Jenkins warned. Anything you say can be used against me, like he used his money against me. His success, his perfect little lake house while my kids share bedrooms. I noticed Sandra's minivan pulling up, Mom and Dad right behind her. Great. the whole family circus arriving to witness Thomas's meltdown. Your Honor. Sandra rushed forward as a distinguished silver-haired man emerged from a town car. Judge Peterson himself, Margaret's connections working fast. Mrs. Anderson, the judge nodded. I've reviewed the emergency petition. Given today's events, I'm granting immediate restraining orders against both you and your husband. But the children will be better served by parents who respect law and property rights. His tone softened slightly. This pattern of harassment and destruction needs to end. For everyone's sake, Mom pushed through the crowd, Dad trailing behind. This is ridiculous. They're brothers. Family. Margaret's voice cut through the chaos as she arrived. Doesn't justify crime, Mom. And this stops now. She handed files to Judge Peterson. The financial records you requested, Your Honor, including evidence of attempted fraud using my name and license. Thomas went white. You wouldn't try me. Margaret's voice was steel. One more move against this property, one more attempt to manipulate or steal, and I file formal complaints with the Bar Association and SEC. You destroy your own brother, Mom cried. Thomas is destroying himself, I said quietly. We're just refusing to let him take us down too. The fire chief approached with his report. Minimal fire damage but significant smoke, and the structural damage to the front window needs immediate attention. I nodded, already calculating costs. I'll have contractors out today. Add it to the criminal charges, Margaret instructed, along with the furniture damage and security system breach. Thomas laughed bitterly as officers led him toward the patrol car. Always the perfect brothers, aren't you? The successful ones, the responsible ones. No, I corrected. Just the ones who learned actions have consequences. Sandra started crying, clutching Dad's arm. What about the children? Their father should have thought about them before committing felony property damage. Margaret finished. She turned to Judge Peterson. Your Honor, given the financial evidence, I'd like to proceed with the conservatorship petition for our parents. Margaret. Mom gasped. You wouldn't. Already did. To protect you from yourselves. She held up more documents. 3 mortgages, 2 maxed credit lines, and multiple unauthorized attempts to access my legal credentials, all to fund Thomas's schemes. Dad seemed to age decades in moments. We were trying to help. You were enabling. I said gently. And it ends today. The crowd slowly dispersed, as Thomas was driven away and fire trucks departed. Judge Peterson reviewed paperwork with Margaret, while Mom sobbed and Sandra made frantic calls to lawyers. I stood on my damaged porch, surveying the chaos. All this because family couldn't respect boundaries. Couldn't accept consequences. Couldn't let go of golden child syndrome even when it threatened everyone's stability. A contractor crew arrived, Margaret's efficiency at work again. As they boarded up my broken window, Dad approached hesitantly. Son, I don't know what to say. There's nothing to say, Dad. Just decisions to make. About whether you'll accept Margaret's help to fix your finances. About whether Mom will stop enabling Thomas's destructive behavior. About whether this family can learn to respect boundaries before we lose everything. He looked old, defeated. We thought we were helping. You were co-signing his chaos. And now look where we are. Sandra stormed up, phone clutched like a weapon. The lawyers say we can fight this, challenge the restraining order, dispute the charges, and risk Thomas facing maximum penalties. Margaret joined us, armor cool in her designer suit. Choose carefully, Sandra. One more bad decision could cost him everything. He's already lost everything. His freedom, his family, his future. No, I corrected. He lost control. Of my property. Of his schemes. Of this situation. There's a difference. Mom's wail cut through the tension. My babies are fighting. My family's destroying itself. Your family, Margaret said firmly, is saving itself. From enablement. From manipulation. From financial disaster. You can either help us rebuild something healthier, or watch from the sidelines under conservatorship. You wouldn't dare. Try me. She held up her phone. Judge Peterson is very concerned about your financial vulnerability. One signature from me. The threat hung heavy in the morning air. Around us, contractors worked efficiently, erasing Thomas's damage piece by piece. Symbolic, really. Sandra's phone buzzed. The jail, probably Thomas being processed. She looked at us, tears streaming. What do you want from us? Acceptance, I said simply. Of boundaries, of consequences, of reality. And if we refuse? Margaret's smile was razor sharp. Then you face those consequences alone. No more family resources. No more enablement. No more chances. You'd cut us off? Your own family? We'd protect ourselves. I corrected. Like we should have done years ago. Dad touched Mom's shoulder as she started to protest again. Enough, dear. They're right. We need help. Robert, look at our son in handcuffs, Mary. Look at our remortgaged house. Our empty retirement accounts. Look at what enabling has cost us. The contractor foreman approached with initial estimates. The numbers made Sandra gasp. Add it to Thomas's restitution requirements. Margaret instructed, along with legal fees and court costs. You're enjoying this, Sandra accused. Punishing us? No, I said quietly. We're ending this. The question is whether you'll help or hinder the healing. She looked at her phone. Another jail call coming in. I need to think. Think carefully, Margaret advised. Your children's future depends on making better choices than your husband did. As Sandra walked away, Mom turned to me with pleading eyes. You'll forgive him eventually, won't you? He's your brother. Forgiveness requires repentance. I said. Change requires acceptance. When Thomas is ready for either, we'll talk. And us. Margaret answered. You work with the financial advisors I'm appointing. You accept the conservatorship terms. You learn to stop enabling destruction.
Hey.
And if we do? Dad asked quietly. Then we rebuild, I said. Slowly, carefully, with boundaries. The contractors finished securing my broken window. The police tape came down. Gradually the chaos of the morning faded, leaving just family wreckage to sort through. But maybe, just maybe, something stronger could rise from these ashes. Something built on respect instead of manipulation, on boundaries instead of enablement, on truth instead of comfortable lies. 6 months after Thomas's arrest, I stood in my newly renovated living room, watching dawn break over the lake. The repairs had given me a chance to upgrade. Better security, stronger windows, enhanced surveillance, a fortress disguised as a sanctuary. My phone buzzed with Margaret's text. Heading to the courthouse. Thomas's plea hearing today. Coming. I hesitated. After 6 months in county jail awaiting trial, my brother had finally agreed to a plea deal. No prison time, but hefty restitution payments, mandatory counseling, and 5 years probation. Plus the restraining orders would remain in place. I'll be there, I replied. The courthouse was quiet when I arrived. Margaret waited outside, impeccable as always in her attorney gear. Mom and Dad weren't allowed to attend, part of the conservatorship restrictions she'd implemented to prevent more enablement. Sandra's inside, Margaret warned.
She's different.
Different how? You'll see. The changes were evident immediately. Gone were the designer clothes and entitled attitude. Sandra sat quietly in her business casual outfit, looking older but somehow more centered. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Both of you. Before we could respond, the bailiff called order. Thomas was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, handcuffs clinking. 6 months of jail food and enforced reflection had changed him too. Thinner, grayer, humbler. The proceedings were brief. Thomas admitted to criminal trespassing, destruction of property, and attempted arson. Accepted the plea deal terms. Agreed to psychological evaluation and ongoing treatment. Your Honor, he said, when allowed to speak, I want to apologize to my brother. What I did, what I tried to do, it was wrong. All of it. I kept my face neutral, but something tight in my chest loosened slightly. After the hearing, Sandra asked to speak privately. We found a quiet corner in the courthouse cafe. I filed for divorce, she announced without preamble.
Oh.
Margaret's eyebrows rose. Really? The counseling they mandated for visitation rights. It opened my eyes to patterns, to enablement, to how I was teaching our children that entitlement and manipulation were normal. How are the kids? I asked. Adjusting. I got a job, real estate assistant, small apartment, but we're managing. They're learning about earning things instead of taking them.
Eesh.
And Thomas, she sighed. He's angry about the divorce, says I'm abandoning him like everyone else, still doesn't fully accept responsibility. Classic narcissistic response, Margaret noted. But he's trying, Sandra insisted. The jail time, it scared him, showed him where this path leads. And you, I asked, what do you want? Peace, stability, a chance to teach my children a better way. She met my eyes. I'm sorry, for everything. The harassment, the threats, the entitlement. You're making amends, Margaret observed, actually changing instead of just apologizing. Trying to. Sandra smiled sadly. Your parents are doing better under financial supervision, I said. Dad's back to work part-time. Mom's adjusting. She still cries about her broken family.
Oh.
Less often now. The therapist is helping her understand boundaries. Sandra nodded. I got a letter from Thomas last week. He wants me to help him fight the restraining orders once he's released. Says family should stick together. And I told him no. That real family respects boundaries, supports growth, accepts consequences. Margaret smiled slightly. You really are changing. Had to. For my kids. For myself. She stood gathering her purse. The restitution payments will start next month. I'm contributing too. Feel it's important to make amends materially as well as verbally. After she left, Margaret and I walked to our cars. Think she means it? I asked. The divorce filing suggests yes. That's not a step taken lightly. And Thomas, she sighed. Time will tell. Real change requires accepting responsibility, not just consequences. Mom's still pushing for reconciliation. Mom's pushing less since we showed her the retirement accounts Thomas drained. Reality is a harsh but effective teacher. I thought about my lakefront sanctuary, repaired and strengthened. Like the house, our family would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something stronger from the wreckage. Coming to dinner Sunday? Margaret asked. Dad's grilling. Small group, just us and the parents. Sandra and kids the following week. If things stay stable. What about Thomas? When he's released? That depends on him.
Eesh.
On genuine change, not just compliance. On accepting boundaries, not just respecting restraining orders. I nodded. Baby steps. Family steps, she corrected. Moving forward together, but carefully, with boundaries. That evening, I stood on my deck, watching sunset paint the lake gold. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Thomas, using his jail phone privilege. I know sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry, ashamed, and grateful you're still my brother, even if I can't be near you right now. The counselor says acceptance is the first step, so I'm accepting that I did this, all of it. And if there's ever a path back, I'd like to find it, slowly, on your terms. I showed the message to Margaret when she stopped by later. Promising, she mused. But actions matter more than words. Think we'll ever be a normal family again. Normal is overrated. Healthy is better, even if it comes with boundaries and restraining orders. She wasn't wrong. The lake house stood peaceful and protected, its scars hidden beneath new renovations. Like the property, our family was being rebuilt. Stronger foundations, better boundaries, clearer consequences.
Oh.
Not everyone would make it through the reconstruction, but those who did would build something better than blind loyalty and toxic enablement. Something built on respect, responsibility, and reality. The sun set over my sanctuary, still mine, still safe.
Ugh.
In my hand, Thomas's message blinked. Not an ending, not quite a beginning, but maybe a path forward, one careful step at a time. End of story.